when we think about what organizations are going to need to look like, they're going to need to look more like this. They're going to be very connected brand hubs that all know what each other are doing, and they're very connected. And they're going to engage directly with consumers. And we're seeing that already with a number of organizations. You can see Ford's obviously one of our clients. I think Ford's in the room. The Ford's beginning to do that with Ford's Story. You start seeing people who work within the organization are already telling stories commingled with consumers. But when we look at this, you should notice the arrows are both in and out instead of just pushing out, because we're going to have to be aggregators as well as amplifiers. And so what this looks like is 20% from 100% paid down to perhaps 20%, a flexible number of reduction. That we're going to spend less on paid media and much more on this other 80%, which is an aggregation and curation. And the reason for that is because what I mentioned before, there's all this data being created. There's all this information being created. The issue is, how are we leveraging the owned and earned aspect of marketing communications? Because this is a brand new world that we're living in. It existed before, but we never really paid attention to it as brand marketers. We concentrated on paid, of creating content and pushing it out. And so if you think about this, the marketers in the future are going to be responsible for assets that they didn't make in places that they don't own. So when somebody tweets about you, that's about your brand. How are you using that? How are you leveraging it? When people are doing a review about your brand or product, are you incorporating that into your marketing? All those things are going to happen by the hundreds of thousands around the world. And we need to be able to incorporate that into our thinking. So this 20% is a 5-year journey that says at some point we're going to be reducing the amount of paid assets. We're going to be shifting that capability and moving that over to this area where we can aggregate and curate and amplify. We will still be doing paid assets. We'll still be creating new ideas and amplifying that and making sure that goes out. But it will be far less. An example of that is with Ford. You may be familiar with this case study. But this is called Ford Agents. And what happened here was that Ford approached marketing a car in the United States very, very differently than it ever did before. It actually decided to give the car away to 100 people before they launched it. So they did a contest and they found 100 agents. And those agents were people that they wanted to talk about their experiences with the car before they launched it. They just wanted people to drive it, get oil changes, go on a picnic, do whatever they wanted to do. And they all created videos, they tweeted about it, they posted on Facebook, they did all the social media before they spent $1 of advertising. They generated 38% awareness before they spent a traditional dollar of media. 38%. And they got 10x the conversion once they launched their campaign. So in effect, they were spending 10 cents on the dollar, not the 20% I just showed you before. This is a very successful launch. It's not always repeatable, but the intent is, can you leverage social media, can you leverage own and earn media before you launch traditional media and spend? And there's lots of advantages for doing that. By doing this, by thinking ahead, by putting social media out first, you're able to embed all these opinions about the car and their experiences. And so when you did run traditional media and people searched for Ford Fiesta, what did they get? They got hundreds and thousands of videos of commentary reviews that occurred, already embedded, right at the top of the search list. How people felt about the car. Right? So that post-evaluation. So what Ford did is they took that McKinsey model and took that to heart and said, we're going to create all this content and it's going to all end up at the top. Because when people start looking for Ford Fiesta, they're going to find information about the car, about people felt about driving it. And then we're going to do it with these 100 people. There's 100 people are going to have communities upon communities, and they end up creating millions and millions of views. Let me show you, this is Jim Farley, who's the CMO, global CMO of Ford, and this was at the auto show in Berlin or Paris, and let him tell you in his own words what's happened by doing this process.
One of the real benefits of our emphasis on social media is the dramatic efficiency we've seen. And it's kind of in maybe an unexpected way. What happens is, by launching the vehicle early and getting people involved in talking about the new global Focus and the new Fiesta in the US before it goes on sale, we can lower the amount of traditional advertising we can do after the vehicle goes on sale. And that's where really the massive cost savings have been. To give you an example, on the Fiesta movement, we had higher unaided nameplate awareness than Fit or Yaris, and we spent 10 cents on the dollar than a traditional, TV ad campaign. So by starting earlier, using social media to spread the word about the new product, we're really reducing the amount of traditional advertising we have to spend.
So, in his own words, but the reality is that they're not spending less money, they're just spending it very differently, right? So I'm not saying that the budgets are necessarily going to reduce, because this other work actually takes quite a bit of resources and capabilities to do, but the results were not just that they were ahead, and not just that they saved money, but they actually had a much higher level of conversion than they had before, 10x. So I'm going to talk a little bit about aggregate, curate, and amplify. And this is one of my favorite applications on the iPhone. If you don't have it, you should get it. It's called Sit or Squat. It helps you find toilets, restrooms, anywhere, in any city in the world, even here in Moscow. In New York, it's particularly hard to find restrooms that you can actually want to go in. And I'm going to show it to you just because when I was at Aegis, and this was the beginning of apps as they were coming out, all we did is we didn't build this at Charmin, right, at P&G. All we did is say, this is a great fit, right? We make toilet paper. This is an application that finds restrooms. Those things go together quite well. And so this is just an example of it. You go in and you search for an area or location, finds restrooms. This happens to be a bar. It says that there were 2 reviews. And it goes in. It's all user generated. Very quite simple. So this one says, this is on 45th West 21st Street, and it says they have 2-way mirrored doors to them, and so when you're peeing, you can see out to the sink and people waiting to use the bathroom. That's quite weird. But it's quite interesting. You actually find out what's happening in all these places. So it's everywhere from McDonald's to Burger Kings to bars to restaurants to gas stations, and it tells you about them. And it's quite interesting. And there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of reviews around the world that people have generated. But the problem with social media is that it's not terribly scalable today. And anybody who's worked in social media knows that you get somebody tweets, you can respond to one tweet at a time or one status update at a time. It's not really scalable for marketers who are looking to do mass communications or trying to reach this. So we at WPP and Group M start looking for solutions, and one of those solutions is this company called SkyGrid. And if you've got an iPad or an iPhone, this is an application that sits on there. It's free. It's a news aggregator. It finds the fastest moving trends. But we're interested in them taking their technology and doing something quite different with it. And in this case, if you're a Lady Gaga fan, you know that Little Monsters are Lady Gaga fans. And you can go search for a Little Monsters, and the results will be something like 10,000 or 100,000, depending on what the search you put in. You can put Little Monsters Chicago, Little Monsters New York, Little Monsters Moscow, and you'll just get back results that are about that group. And they'll be in the tens of thousands. And this application right now will handle about 100,000 at a time. But Lady Gaga is a brand, and she can now talk to a huge amount of fans at one time and aggregate them together on a topic. And so if she does this search, she can collect this very simply. She pulls them together, and in one click, she creates a status update, a tweet, that says, come meet my 10,000 little monsters. This application automatically creates a URL, and when she sends it, every one of those 10,000 little monsters gets a message saying that Lady Gaga has just mentioned her. Now, if you're a Lady Gaga fan, and you've been mentioned by Lady Gaga, what are you going to do? You're going to retweet that. You're going to post that on your wall, right? You're going to be involved with that. That's a really compelling viral event that's going to happen. And what happens when you engage in this and you click on that URL, you get taken to a page that has all those conversations on it. both from Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Flickr, all the social grid. And it's all brought in one place. And these are people that didn't know each other. Because mostly people are talking to a very small community. They're not talking broadly. They're just tweeting and they actually don't know who they're tweeting to. But what Lady Gaga was able to do, and any brand can do using SkyGrid, is bring a topic of interest together in one place. And have those people where you can speak to them, and they can speak to each other. They're all fans. They're all doing that. And then this would show their social graph. So your friends would come up first, then the rest of them will come up. It brings in video, and it's quite interesting. So this is a really interesting application. I think we're going to see a lot more of this as we go forward because, as I said, all this data and all these conversations are happening, and it's impossible today, mostly, except for applications like this, and we'll see more of them, where we can start aggregating this out there and say, how does this affect our brands? How can we use this? So for Kimberly-Clark, for example, they're very interested in diapers, and they're very interested in talking to mothers who are entering their third trimester of their pregnancy. Try targeting women in their third trimester of their pregnancy, right? You're only in it for a very short period of time, and it'd be very inefficient to reach them through a lot of other means. But if you go on this application, you search for third trimester, you're going to get women who are talking about, I've just entered my third trimester, I'm really excited, I'm doing this. And you could put hundreds, if not thousands of women together who are all sharing the same moment in time. And you can do this across many brands and capabilities. These are topics of interest, and we're going to have to learn how to curate them. So as we look at this, this is our model for pay to earn. This is our engine as we look at this world. And where we have been for a long time is we've only paid attention on this side, paid. But the new world we've lived in, or living in, is this ecosystem between brand experiences and social media earn. It's an engine, and it's constant. People experience your brand, and when they come out of that experience, whether they've tasted it, or drove it, or clicked it, or watched it, they then share those experiences with others. Now, this world of social media and technology allows that to be amplified beyond word of mouth in a way that is just massive. But all of that experience of earn actually feeds into your brand experience. It becomes your brand experience. So if you're a hotel, or you're a car manufacturer, or you're a technology company, or building electronics, what people say about your product is as important, and I would probably say more important, than what you're saying about your product. And it becomes your ecosystem. And then what we do is we should look at how we take paid and apply it. So think about this ecosystem churning and operating, and what we do instead of hoping, right? What we did in the past is we would look at this world on the left and say, we can't really control this world, and this world we definitely can't control, we don't even know what's happening out there. So whatever happens is fantastic, but today we live in a very different space. We live in a space that says we actually can understand what's happening, we can put our finger on the pulse, and if we understand this ecosystem between brand experience, sharing, and earn, then we can apply paid media in a much stronger, smarter way as we move forward. But it is secondary. It is the second process. First, we have to really understand what's happening in the marketplace. We have to understand what's going on. And I think the Ford example is an ideal space that says they created their own ecosystem after this launch. And then they applied paid media in a smarter way because they understood what people said. They understood what was going to be important to them after listening to them for 6 months in the marketplace. So the last couple of things to talk about is the future of some areas. And these are really exciting things to speak to the future of media and what's happening. And the first I'm going to show you is a video from a company called IDEO. And they are a think tank. And this is a scenario, if you go on online, on YouTube, and look up the future of books, there'll be 3 scenarios. I'm going to show you one of them called Nelson as an example to talk about some technology that's come out that we think is really exciting. So take a look.